I still get excited. I still, analysing it and working on the games like we do.
It's that promise of something that can be delivered. Everyone's allowed to dream. And for a team like Toronto FC, it's the start of what they believe can be a very successful journey again towards, winning trophies.
It is Footy Talks, presented by Benjamin Moore. Great to have you with us, Luke, Stephen, and KJ. And a great show coming up for you today, including the general manager of Toronto FC, Ali Curtis, and Warren Crevalle, former TFC player, a teammate of yours, Stevie, with TFC a few years ago. Warren Crevalle now with Philadelphia Union. He's injured at the moment, but we'll get the lowdown on Philly and also on his fashion designing. And you'll remember that at the MLS's back tournament, the T-shirt that everybody was wearing, Black Lives Matter, the coaches, the players as well, that was designed by Warren Crevalle. So we will get into that and ask him a little bit about that moving forward as well. What a week it's been for the game already. We've not had any MLS games for a few days. Feels like an eternity given the schedule that has been on for all the different teams with so many games. I did see a bit of the Nashville game that was on TSN a couple of nights ago. Tonight is Portland-Seattle, which is of relevance, of course, in terms of the Supporters' Shield. The first overall race in Major League Soccer.
Or maybe the Shield.
Champions League's been a bit tasty as well, but I have to say, I don't make a habit of going back and watching games that I called. I just don't like it. I don't like... it's very difficult for me to go back, watch a game and enjoy it, because I'm listening for all the things that I wish I hadn't said, or I had said differently, or I forgot to mention, or I misidentified somebody. So I tend not to do that. But last night I went downstairs after putting the kids to bed, turn on the TV, and it's up to the 60th minute on TSN4. Had no idea it was going to be on, of the 2016 Eastern Conference Final between TFC and Montreal. And I started watching it, and I was just captivated by not only the game and what it meant and how good it was, but also the fans in the stands. And it was a moment that really, and I know you were watching it last night, KJ, as well, and you put something out on Twitter, and I read some of the responses and the emotion that night and that game, the emotions that it evokes in people, emotions that can't be got right now. And I was talking to Stevie at the weekend. Imagine what BMO Field would have been like last week when they score a last-minute winner at home, at this stage of the season. And it just made me, it was great to see, but it also made me feel a little disappointed at where we're at right now, and that those moments right now that we can't all enjoy.
Yeah, all of that is so true. There's without question a real feeling of everything just feels lost. It's an inadequate feeling that sports is supposed to bring. And I think that we have traits where I think all of us are quite positive, but out of the lockdown and out of everything, when everything started, the feeling was, well, this is better than it was. We've got soccer, and then we've had soccer, and it's still there. And but it's been there now for some time, that it's like, okay, well, now it's still the same, and now we're pining for that return of fans again. And that, we've always pined for it, but now ever more, I feel like as humans we want it back again, because we knew before that, well, we'll just take this because it's adequate for now, but it certainly feels inadequate. And I watched it with you when you sent us a message last night. I turned it on as well. I didn't know it either. And I had watched it already during this year as well. It was on already before that, but no, it was. It was a night that brings out, and as you said, those messages that people were so kind to leave on our social media. A night that's is what professional sports is about. Stevie, sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. The Montreal fans played an enormous part that night. Montreal as a franchise played an enormous part, and they were this close. They were narrowly defeated on that night, but they play an enormous part as a character in this plot. And people always say, forget how you make them feel. And that night, those players left a without question, a feeling within those people within that stadium that they'll never ever forget.
Yeah, and it's just the whole visuals around that night, isn't it, guys? Like it was proper. It was proper football. It was a fan base that was just desperate for the team to win. You had the little bit of away support because of the proximity of the teams. You had the rivalry of the Canadian battle, and you had two brilliant football teams who just would not let up, just going at each other's throats, goals, drama, rain.
Some of the challenges as well, like Donadell and Bradley, and you forget how it wasn't just about the goals. It was so intense there on the pitch.
Yeah, it was played in the right spirit though, wasn't it? It was like, you know, kick somebody, get them up, have them on, get on with it. You know, there was no real like gamesmanship going on, KJ, was there? It was like a bunch of men out there that were like giving absolutely everything, and you know, TFC just had a little bit more, but I really felt for that Montreal team. They were superb. They made the mistakes when they were 3-0 up, obviously, in the Big O in the first leg, where they probably wish they had that time back. They would have seen out 3 minutes, at least never conceded 2 goals, maybe just 1 goal or no goals. But at that point, 3-0 up in the first leg, I thought they were going to win about 5-0. But a great team and a team who were so close. In some ways, I know TFC should have beat Seattle, in that final, but I really believe Montreal would have beat Seattle in that final as well. So it was it's high drama. It's just one of the amazing moments in Canadian soccer that we'll never forget, guys. We'll reference it for years and years and years because of the spectacle and the quality and the way that it's captivated a whole generation of youth, KJ.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Montreal. For me, watching it back, but I also never forget how we felt, and we had lots of chats off and on camera, the three of us, as we dissected that series. When Montreal were at their best, they reached a high that TFC never reached during those two-legged series. And that doesn't mean that they were better, but when they were at their best, TFC never reached that level. TFC got through that because their remarkable will and the ability to be very smart, particularly from set pieces, which played an enormous part in that. We know they scored the 2 goals. We since I spoke to Josie Alstor and Sebastian Javinko, how they changed the play immediately right at the very last second for Javinko to play the corner right to the near post. And Altidore had seen a problem already in the first half with Montreal at that near post. So small details like that are key moments where Montreal fell asleep. But the overall play of Montreal, particularly in the first half in the Big O, when we eventually had a game after they started painting the white lines.
The whole thing was absurd.
Yeah, the whole thing is absurd. But yeah, Montreal were, I think, there's a lot of images that night that I remember. Hassoun Kamara, a friend of ours now in broadcast, I remember him just lying down. He after the final whistle, I'm on the field trying to get interviews, and he just couldn't pick himself up. And when Stevie knows this more than me, but when a player's down, sometimes you go and you get him up, you pull him up, and there's nobody could pick him up. He just couldn't pick it. He couldn't get up. And that was down to obviously physical and mental exhaustion, as well as just complete and utter dejection. That was their year. It was their year to win it, and they just came a little bit short.
Yeah, the whole 2 legs, everything. We've talked about it all before, but it was just a great memory to be able to see that last night and see what games used to look like. I mean, I was sitting watching Ajax against Liverpool yesterday. It's just not the same. It just in that cavernous stadium, it's just not. But you see that and what it was and what it can be in the future, and it just gets you so excited for what it will be when all this is over and the fans can get back into the stands. And there was one other thing about that tie. The 2 legs that we don't get now because it's a 1-leg knockout. And I saw a clip of Jamie Carragher talking yesterday on CBS Sports, and they were doing a quick fire round of different questions, a bit like the onside offside thing that we did a little while ago on TSN.
Yeah.
But the question was, should the Champions League go to the one-off games and finish the season like they did this last year with the quarterfinals, semis, and the final? And he was absolutely against it in terms of, the 2 legs, the drama that it brings, the possibility of teams to play home and away, and just over the course of that 180 minutes or extra time, all the different things, different scenarios that can happen. I just think that's better. I just prefer the 2 legs. I appreciate the 1-game knockout has some differences in terms of getting the momentum, but that if that was just a 1 game at BMO Field, we're not still talking about it now and showing it last night on the TV. It was everything combined with the 2 legs.
You're right, and it also generates the rivalries that we now discuss going forward. And every time you talk about Toronto FC playing Montreal, it's organic. It's been formed because of that series, and subsequently other ones, Canadian Championship finals being decided in the last minute. Other ones, obviously Montreal had beaten TFC the year prior to that. 3-0. So you need those. I'm with you. I'm an enormous backer of a 2-legged playoff format. Right now, it just feels like the playoffs is just quick, get it out the way and done. And I know last year was it was exciting and a lot of goals, but I do think that there's potential for it to be the opposite way around now. Stevie, I certainly think at the time when it came out that the game could be tenser. There's so much more to lose. If you're a number 10 seed and you've won your first round and you're going up against the number 1 seed, you got one game. Anything can happen. We already know that in this great sport that we love, that there's opportunities for the bounce to go here. There's a lot of fortune and luck that can happen. So for me, I'm a big backer of the two-legged things for so many different reasons.
Yeah, I think it's fairer. I think when you're talking about 180 minutes plus potentially extra time, it's fairer in terms of the best team for me will go through from that matchup, So that's why I like it personally. I know that, there's some negativity towards teams maybe playing a bit safe in the first leg, and even home teams now, isn't it, that kind of play safe because they don't want to lose that away goal. But I still believe in it, KJ, and I do. And so, we talked about Shakhtar Donetsk yesterday, KJ. You had me on the Sirius show, which was fantastic, and how brilliant they were. Absolutely brilliant. I could talk about them for an hour, the tactics, defensively, on the ball, the bravery of the players, some young guys out there for them. But would they have been 3-0 up at a Park Bernabeu? No. They wouldn't have been.
No.
They actually would. It would have been a minor miracle if they were 3-0 up at halftime, as good as they were at a Park Bernabeu, because the fans would have brought on this energy, negative, positive, whatever it may be. They would have had a serious effect on what was going on in the game. They would have woke people up. They're playing in the reserve team stadium, which is not even a full stadium, empty.
Yeah.
It has that feel of like a training game. And we're starting to see that and more. Ajax Liverpool was the same, Luke. It was like a training game. Guys making mistakes they would never normally make. Guys trying things that I don't think they would try if Amsterdam Arena, or whatever it's called now, was packed with Ajax fans. I just think that it's having a real strange, I don't think it's detrimental, but a real strange effect on the way these guys are playing the games. And that's why we want them back. They're the lifeblood of this sport. They really are. We've realised that through COVID, and it's amazing that we all appreciate that now, that there's nothing but the fans. I think even the players and the clubs appreciate that as well.
Yeah, and you look at TV pictures from that game last night, and it's nowadays you watch the game, you see the players on the pitch. The amount of times during that game where part of the excitement of the game was shots in the stand of the fans, their reactions, how it was going, that sort of thing. It's a huge part of it, without a doubt. Hi to Kristian, who is with us from Argentina today. Dominique is in Belgium as well. If you're a little closer to home, you can also send us a message. Let us know where you are watching Footy Talks today. Ali Curtis still to come, the general manager of Toronto FC and Philadelphia Union's Warren Creval. We should know sometime Thursday night, maybe, if there is going to be a supporters shield this year, if there's an about turn. Apparently, supporters groups have now been asked. There's been more of a process to try and get people's opinions. I don't know, KJ.
You don't know where to start, do you?
He's scared to ask this question, isn't he?
No, how about you give us your opinion on the whole situation?
That's absolutely ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, we talked about the fans. I think, first off, the original statement wasn't good enough. It was lacking in any kind of actual proper, well thought through reasoning as to why this shouldn't be given. Secondly, then when that reasoning did come in, I don't think it was worth not giving a supporters shield for the reasons that have been outlined. Thirdly, the fact that it wasn't done with consultation with people who are the lifeblood of the sport rather than just this group makes it a farce. Fourthly, the fact that Greg Vanny and players learnt on Twitter of the decision rather than actually being informed like a proper business or a proper decision that was made within a league would be. All of this just comes to why the whole process is absolutely incredible that this has actually happened and got to this stage. And the one thing I would say with regards to the supporters, I know some of them that I've talked to, yes, they want to be in the stands. Yes, they want to have that ability to watch teams closely, to be there showing their support. I think some TFC fans would actually say that they feel as close to the team this year than they ever have because of what those players have gone through and done for them on their behalf. Yes, players are doing it for their own careers and because they want to play, but also they want to, part of them being away right now, spending all this time away from their families and being in Hartford. And you see Chris Mavinga putting out the photo of having to leave his kid yesterday with the crying face. They want to deliver something for the fans. And I think those fans would say that they appreciate the players just as much now as they ever have done because of that.
Yeah, no question about it. I also think that, certainly from a Canadian point of view, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, those people who are in Canada right now would appreciate that. Those who aren't necessarily understand why you don't appreciate it or why you can't really understand it. But there's nothing going on here in this country. They're not allowed to go and watch their team. So what does that badge stand for? It stands for the city where these people live or what they represent and where they are. And that is a badge that they go out and represent from their home, that they can go and take and play somewhere else. That's why they're playing these games. Otherwise, why don't they just say, I'm not bothered playing this season, and you guys can all just play between yourselves in the US and we'll join you next year when hopefully we can play at home again. The sacrifices that they're going through is to represent that badge and that name on that badge, and subsequently the people who care so much about it where they live and those areas. So that's another reason why it was such a, I think, nothing short of an asinine decision, really. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And hopefully things will turn around. But I do think, though, going forward, Major League Soccer needs to have, and I'm sure that they have already, Stephen, they've had conversations that they can just never allow this to ever happen again. If you're a forthcoming organization the way that they are and they're thinking about things, you cannot allow the people with very little ramifications to make enormous decisions that have made this a big wave. You've got to step up and step in at some point and make sure that this doesn't ever happen again, and that you take full control. I know that they weren't in control of that. There was a collaboration and there's reasons behind that. But yeah, this is with a reversal or not, good for them if they do reverse it. And it takes a lot of strength and power to admit that you've made a mistake in life. But still, this has to be something that Major League Soccer has to flag permanently, I think, Stephen.
Yeah, I agree, KJ. I think that, I'm not for taking this honour off the real supporters, the genuine supporters, the guys who are in the stands in Seattle and in San Jose and in Toronto and New York and Montreal and Vancouver. They're the real supporters. They're the reason that this is called the Supporters' Shield. But then you have this group who make decisions on behalf of the MLS League title. That's what this trophy is. It's the MLS League title. You talk at length, KJ, really well about how we need to make these regular season games significant and how difficult that process is going to be for a summer North American playoff style league to actually have people see the value in Columbus v TFC and a summer's night in May when they could be at their cottage or doing many other things in the terrific city of Toronto.
Yeah.
So, this is the MLS League title. They have to grab control. I'm okay if it's still called the Supporters' Shield in some form, but they need to control that. They need to decide what happens with that trophy. This is their opportunity. And I don't think that we should look at this as a cynical opportunity. Oh, they're going to slap a sponsor on it. It's going to be called the X Trophy by the supporters or whatever that may be. I don't think we should look at it like that. I think we should look at it like the league should control their league title, and then they can push to make it as relevant as possible. And so I think in some ways a lot of the power is going to be certainly dragged away from this group. Maybe potentially it won't be called the Supporters' Shield and someone else will be developed into that. I personally would like them to be involved in some way, but the real supporters, the guys that are there on the field in any of the wonderful cities where we have franchises in MLS, awarding that shield to the group of players that deserve it.
Yes, it's an unbalanced season. Yes, it might get in the end decided by points per game.
Let's say that right here. It's always unbalanced because you play teams in the West, some away and some home.
And the other thing I was going to say about that is MLS Cup isn't balanced either. You're giving your biggest trophy away over the, we're talking here about TFC will have played 23 games. Okay. You're going to give your biggest trophy away after playing 4 games, having reduced the number of games to a knockout round. You're also going to give your biggest trophy away. Like KJ mentioned with the Eastern and Western Conference trophy, you have to win maybe 2 games to get through and be an Eastern Conference champion. I think, and I've thought for a while, and KJ voiced it on the pre-game show, I think it was at the weekend, or maybe online. But to me, the Eastern Conference and Western Conference champions should be whoever finished top of that conference during the regular season.
Yes.
That is a way to reward the people in those teams that finish top during the regular season. It's a way to make sure it's a little fairer in terms of the balance of the schedule, because the East plays a similar schedule, the West plays a similar schedule. And yeah, you don't win a trophy. TFC beat DC. They had a good win at New York City. They had a good win at Atlanta, but 3 games and they're Eastern Conference champion. Whereas I think you could do that by giving that trophy over the course of the season. Then you don't necessarily have to have anything for who is the top team of the East and the West in the regular season. You could just, especially as we move forward, guys, and there's more teams coming in, and it'll become even less balanced in terms of who plays who and which Eastern teams play the Western teams.
Can I ask you a question, KJ? Sorry, but it's bugging me this. I know that you have a far greater knowledge of North American sport, other sports, basketball, baseball, even hockey than I do. But isn't all North American sport, you could argue, is unbalanced? Because the Western Conference is stronger than the East. Then the East team, what I've heard in previous years in the NBA, for example, come through their playoffs or the season with less scratches and scrapes and hardship than maybe a team in the West.
Completely.
And in the finals a little bit fresher. So I'd like us to try and put to bed this unbalanced argument. It's a massive country of extreme travel. There's never going to be pure balance like a Premier League, is there?
There isn't right now. No, I'm with you. There is a chance with expansion that we could get to the point where you could genuinely have regular seasons where in baseball they used to have this, where you only play people in your teams in your own Eastern Conference, and like they've done this year. And then you get to a point where maybe if they extend it, where you play everybody twice within your own conference or something, and then that became or 3 times, and that could be something eventually. But even if you do that, it's still unbalanced. You play 3 games against an opponent, 2 at home, 1 are away, and so to speak. But I'm with you. I agree with Luke. I said the same thing Sunday pregame show. For me, if a regular season is going to take 9 months and you're going to play 34 games and you're going to come top of that, you deserve that trophy. And players may disagree with me. I've been on the field now for 3 out of the last 4 of them interviewing these players, and they love to lift that trophy when they win that final. But the genuine thought is all about, we just made MLS Cup. That is the goal. That is the goal of the season. So when they win that game, whether TFC beat Montreal, TFC beat Atlanta, what they are excited to lift that trophy. But the moment they lift it, they can't wait to get their hands on the other one. And we see it in hockey. If you bring it up NHL, we see it in hockey when they win their conference. Some of the players don't even touch that trophy because they don't want to jinx it because of the real trophy for the Stanley Cup. So I understand this league has got influences from North America that's always going to be there. But I think the influences from the world are just as strong now. And I think you have to find a way to reward sustainable success. And that Eastern Conference trophy and that Western Conference trophy are enormous accomplishments. And if you can put that at the top of that league standing, it's a separate competition completely. Playoffs start, you only win 3 games, you get there, you're in the finals. It's a separate competition. You can award MLS Cup that way. But if you don't win MLS Cup and you win the conference over 34 games, you have silverware, proper silverware, that is a good season. For example, if we want to bring it back to Toronto FC are the best team in Major League Soccer right now. The best team in MLS. Your eye test tells you that. The stats test tells you that. The league table tells you that. But I'll say it right now. They are not favorite to win MLS Cup. No team has ever won 4 away games in a playoff series to get to and win an MLS Cup. That's what TFC have to do. They're not playing games at home. So if TFC don't win MLS Cup this year and say they don't win the Supporters' Shield or a league trophy, is it a bad season? Some people would say that it is, but it's not. So what are you going to do to reward that season that they've done here? This game this weekend, Supporters' Shield or Supporters' Shield, Philadelphia versus TFC under our plan. That's the battle right there, top of the table, clash for the Eastern Conference trophy. 4 games to go. Who's going to win the Eastern Conference trophy? It's a brilliant storyline. Again, it brings tremendous value to the regular season, which they've got to do. Every game matters in the European leagues, guys, because of promotion and relegation. And if that's not going to come here in Major League Soccer, we have to find a way to sell these games. Every game matters. No, Newcastle, Brighton in September. Oh, this is a big game for Newcastle. They can't lose this. They might get relegated. That's in 8 months, but there's still a big game. These games have to matter, and that's an enormous reason for it. And I think if you award them wonderful Eastern and Western Conference trophies, which they are, for the league title, I'm totally with you both. I think it's a great idea.
Warren Crevalle of Philadelphia Union coming up very shortly. KJ, you mentioned this game coming up this weekend. TFC top right now of the Eastern Conference. I think they'll all have been watching that game on Monday night when New England came back late, almost got a point against Philadelphia Union, but Philly went into New England and won by 2-1 to keep hot on the heels of TFC. So it's really tight at the top. And we saw these two teams meet just a couple of weeks ago at Rentschler Field when TFC found a way to get the job done. We said at the end of the game last week, champions find ways to win games. And right now, that's what TFC are doing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And when you look at the teams that they found a way to get through during this run, you know, they beat New York City away, they beat Columbus, they beat Philadelphia, they went to New England and beat them, they beat Atlanta. And I know Atlanta are not strong, but they're all big former or current big opponents in the Eastern Conference, Stephen. Every barrier or every challenge they've hit so far, they've rose to it, haven't they? So I think this is another one. It's tough to go there. But if you're Greg Vanney, you're coming back from Toronto, you've had a couple of days off, you're saying to your guys, this is it, guys. This is the best team in the Eastern Conference, not called Toronto FC. We're going to their stadium. We've been able to do this. If you don't get up for this one, then you're not going to get up for anything. So I think it's a real test for them to have that kind of playoff game before the playoffs start.
Yeah, I think it's going to have that real feel of a big game. I'm really excited for this one, actually, because I think that, you know, with them playing just a few weeks ago and setting it up nicely with TFC coming back strong in the second half and really Philly looking quite leggy and baited. And so I think Philly will maybe be a little bit angered by that, disappointed in their own performance and sort of really excited and saying, okay, here we go, roll the sleeves up. We're going to show these guys we're the best team. And we know the mentality TFC have. So I see a real psychological battle here, KJ. I do see two brilliant teams, but I think that there's a real mentality to kind of show the other one that we're the best, you know. So I think we're going to get a great game. I think we've got two teams with somewhat similar style with the way that they play in terms of getting numbers in the middle of the park. You know, more of a diamond from Philadelphia and potentially a box from TFC, but similar styles and real top players, numerous guys playing the best football of their careers, and that's something quite significant as well. And amongst all this drama, you've got a Larea and a Fontana and a Mavinga and an Aronson and a Bedoya. He's playing some great football. Yeah. So you've got some real performers out there. It's going to be a terrific match, I think.
You talk about players playing best football of their careers right now, Stevie. Obviously, Larea is one. Would you put anybody else in that bracket right now for TFC?
Chris Mavinga's playing his best football of TFC career. I've not watched enough of him before TFC to say for sure that.
You want a weekly subscriber to the Ruben Kazan?
No? I don't watch a lot of Russian Premier League, if that's even what it's called, games. But
it is, yeah.
See, KJ watches them. He could tell you.
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, no, he's playing for me. His confidence, his fitness, his decision making is top of his game right now. You know, he's a guy who's had great spells and then an injury, then a silly red card, then maybe a little bit of a sloppy game. And I say that with all due respect because I think he's an extremely talented player. But this year, there's none of the kind of, I don't want to be disrespectful again, but I'm going to use the word shenanigans. There's none of the kind of silly stuff going on with Mavinga. It's just business. And it's playing his game properly, and he's showing all these qualities, and I'm really enjoying watching him. So I'd put him in there. Osorio for me, he's always brilliant. He's looked tired. He's going to be injured, of course. So the last couple of games have been disappointing for him. But yeah, maybe Pozuelo, KJ. I'm trying to think who else you'd maybe put in there for TFC.
Yeah, I think Pozuelo for sure is playing the best of his Toronto FC career. And he was asked recently whether he's playing the best of his career. And he said no, but I've played like this before, you know, for one of my teams previously to this. And I think that would have been the time when he just got to Belgium and started to really find his time there as well. But yeah, I think he would admit that he'd struggle to find a body of work that was better than this. If you want to put them both on the same level, I'm with you with Mavinga. I think his level of engagement from whistle to whistle has been there throughout the consistency of the season, and his ability to just stay switched on has been really important. And he's obviously very motivated. And if we all have our ballots. If I was to hand mine in right now for MLS Best 11, he'd be on it. That's how good he's been. So yeah, I'm with you with him as well. And I actually think Quentin Westberg has bounced back again. I thought he was tremendous in key areas again in the game last weekend. Just the small things, the small things that Stevie and I were talking about even prior to the game, when it's not even the saves, it's just his positioning a lot of the times, that he just needs to be in the right position and reading the game and being ready. And I think that's a really a big factor of the game. And we already know how much leadership and calmness he brings to the team. And I think that has really helped his centre backs in front of him as well.
Yeah, was it Sunday night I said, look, where there was the one where there was a little through ball and he came out, didn't he? And it looks simple. He catches it, quick throw, KJ, and 6-8 seconds later, it's at the end of the field.
Yeah, I did a libero on it for Sports Centre.
Yeah. We've seen it recently, but it's the little things with Westberg that his positioning is elite. It is top drawer. He very rarely gets caught in no man's land. So he's high enough to support his defenders, make the good decisions. But sometimes, a goalie will get caught in that no man's land. Should I come? Should I go? Or should I stay back? But he doesn't have the decision. So I agree with you. And big saves at big times as well. I still think maybe a couple of question marks coming for crosses and stuff like that. But I agree. He's playing some great stuff right now for TFC.
One of the interesting things about watching that game last night from 2016 was seeing, I'd forgotten exactly who started it, who was coming off the bench. And you think about where Jonathan Osorio is now and what he's meant to this team the last few years. He's coming into that game. He wasn't starting that game back in 2016.
He got dropped, if you remember. He got dropped because he started the game in Montreal and got pulled off at 3-0. And so it was his first. I think it was his first game without a start for a number of months. It was a bit of a shock.
And Will Johnson had come in.
Right.
First game in September.
He didn't start the game. Yeah, I've spoken to him about that since, about the humbling experience that he had to go through and develop his game a little bit more because of it. And look, the rest is history. I agree with Stevie. I think he's been outstanding this season in that role. And it'll be interesting to see when everyone's fit, with Michael Bradley returning now as well, where Greg Vanny places all those chess pieces on the board.
Just waiting for Warren Craval to join us, and Ali Curtis coming up later as well. So let's do the Benjamin Moore do-it-yourself play of the game. And rather unsurprisingly, it's going to be the winning goal from the game against Atlanta last week. Producer Kev can bring us that one. It was obviously that glancing header from Nacho Piatti. Not Nacho Piatti, Pablo Piatti. I'm glad I've never done that on the TV before, but I was watching Nacho
last night. Yeah,
the Nacho man.
PFC. Obviously, it was great work down the right. Richie Larea manages to create it, but the more you look at the header from Piatti, there was only one place this could have gone. There was only one way he could have made this connection with the ball when he clips it in here, that it was going to creep into that corner, and he got it to perfection, didn't he?
It's a sensational header, and it speaks to me about an area for him that I thought about for some time, that we're starting to see more and more, that he's got a terrific eye for goal. He really does. And, Stevie can talk about this more than me. He's scored more headers than I ever in my life, but just the ability to just glance it off his head and put it in the right direction is terrific, Stevie. And again, the man for the moment, I think Piatti, as I said in my Sports Centre after the game, I think if you could pick a player to score a winning header like that to boost the confidence right now, you'd pick him, because I think the 2 or 3 games prior to this, he looked pretty tired and didn't reach the level he needed to, but he's been fantastic for the majority of the season, and that just goes to show you that he needed that there, and it's a great finish.
Guys, I could watch that header 1,000 times. Every time I see it, I'm just watching it there. I'm barely listening to you, KG. Sorry, but I'm just...
That's fine.
I'm used to that.
I spend 90 minutes like that every single week. Looking across games going on, Stevie's there with his cookies or brownies that he's been given from the wonderful Mrs. Jack.
No, I'm serious, guys. It's like, technically, it's incredible. He's beyond the near post. Let's talk about that to start with, right? So he's beyond the near post. To get it in the far post is really, really difficult. It's got no pace on it, right? So what do you try and do? Generate pace. you generate pace, it inevitably goes over the bar. He doesn't do that. He knows he has to guide it. It's so perfect, the precision of that header, the way that he guides it, the way that he comes back towards the ball and he just glances at his sublime technique, at his outstanding goal. And I love watching it because there's so many things that could easily have went wrong to try and kind of generate, a goal from that effort that he sort of stopped himself from doing, which I think is quite phenomenal. And I agree with KJ. He's starting to be a player who is quietly having a massive influence, and he's a guy who knows where the net is, and we're starting to see different finishes from him. We're seeing tap-ins, we're seeing headers like that, we're seeing 30-yard shots, 25-yard shots. He's starting to come up with the big moments to support his buddy Pozzuelo in the middle of the park there.
He's a good header of the ball too. I've seen him score heading goals before he came to TFC. If memory's right, it could be wrong, but I feel like he scored one at the Camp Nou against Barcelona too, a header. So for a player of smaller stature, he knows what to do with it for sure. Yeah.
Just before, Warren Creval is on the way, and so is Ali Curtis as well. But we did the Montreal game last Saturday night as they managed to beat Miami. You mentioned Camp Nou there, and it takes me back to thinking about Thierry Henry's Barcelona days and Bojan as well. And I was sitting at the kitchen table last, was it Friday? We did the call with Thierry Henry. The house in absolute chaos, right? Dishes piled up all over the sink. 2 kids spilling pasta all over the place and tomato soup all over the table. My wife trying to sit working in the corner and I've got my headphones in, and I'm sitting there listening to one of the greatest players ever to play the game, a worldwide superstar in the game. Just having this conversation, especially with you guys, he's so natural in terms of how he talks and his memories. And at the end of that call, I put this, I just thought, in the midst of all this nonsense that's going on right now in my house, I've just had the opportunity to have 15, 20 minutes listening to and chatting with you guys, one of the game's greatest. And it was just, the whole thing was like, we have these calls on a regular basis with the managers. They're very gracious with their time. But the whole thing is just surreal when you put the phone down and think, wow, that was Thierry Henry.
Yeah, no doubt. It's not got lost on us. And, he's one of these people who, whenever he says something significant or does something significant, it's going to make headlines around the world. And I don't think that's ever going to go away. And, thank goodness for the mute button, I suppose, in the Wileman house, please. So
that's why when we do these things, I'm always like, KJ, you're asking the calls.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all good. I enjoy it, and it's a team effort. So no, it's a great pleasure to speak to him. And I actually was really pleased for him that they were able to turn that around last week. And
are they gonna make it in?
I think they will. Yeah, I think they're decent side lads. I really do. I mean, there's a lot of issues with them defensively, and things are going to happen. They're going to have another nightmare at one point. They're just going to have. It's a bit of a comedy at the back, but. Who are we kidding? I think I won't want to play him. I'd tell you that. I would not want to play him in an MLS knockout game because, and the other thing too is that I wonder, I was thinking about this before, Tyder's left and now it's Bojan's turn. Now it's his turn. Let's turn up the wick, buddy. It's time for you to turn it up. Let's go. And he did it last week. Hey, Stevie, when we did the game.
Is he going to be a DP now moving forward?
Right.
So the whole deal about him.
Why not? Right? I mean, sometimes you need to take that big player out of a system and a team for another one to shine. And whether he's going to do that or not, the evidence is only very short right now in the short sample size, Stevie. But he stepped up, and as I said, when you've got that player there, and they still have injuries. Lapalainen's done for the year now as well. But if you can have a couple of players playing ahead of him and working hard like a Kyoto and a routine, you can play him behind. I think there's something there.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a difference maker, and I think that in some ways he might relish the chance with Tyder leaving, that this is his team and he is the creative force within that, the middle of the park there to get things going. And Kyoto's having a terrific season. Binks we've mentioned in the past before. They've got some guys out there that are performing. They are making some crazy mistakes, and I agree with KJ. I don't know if that will change. I don't think they'll suddenly become solid and reliable, but it's exciting to watch. It's a good brand of football, and Thierry's really trying his best to get them going. And when you hear this guy talk about football, the passion just oozes through the phone call, doesn't it, or in person if you're ever lucky enough. And it reminds me of a time when I had an international break when I was at Wigan, and I went over to New York to visit Carl Robinson, my old teammate who was playing for the Red Bulls at the time. Thierry was there, and I went to training. I'm watching practice, and I'm at the sidelines, and he sort of comes by near the end, and I never had a conversation with the guy. I played against him 3 or 4 times in the UK, and he walks by and he says hello, and I'm polite. I say hello, and before I know it, we start engaging in this long conversation. When I say long, I mean like an hour or two. I'm basically following him while he does his post-training routine, his stretching, his weights, and I keep feeling awkward because I think I don't want to take too much of the guy's time. He's doing his work, and he keeps asking me to come to the next, the canteen and then to the gym room, and that's just the man that he is. He loves the game. If he finds somebody that he feels can kind of engage in this conversation in the game with him, he will talk about it till it gets dark, till it's midnight. He loves football, Luke. And you can tell that for every conversation you have with him, don't you, KJ?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's special. And hopefully his players can still continue to do that with him a lot and relate to him in Montreal.
Certainly not the first time you'd followed Thierry Henry around, because I remember it happening at Highbury one day.
Behind him, trying to catch him. What a player. And that's a good point, because he is like the Messi, the Ronaldo, my generation. I will always look up to that guy, even though I was on the park against him a number of times. Guys, he could do things that you just can't believe. I can still remember how, I'm thinking, right, I'm going to drop off him, and then he'd get it and turn and run at me. And I think I'm going to get real tight, and he would spin me. And he was one of the few players I'm going I don't know what to do against this guy. I'm just I'm beat all hands up here. I've got no answers for you. I just hope that you trip up or you go off or you don't fancy it today, because he was that good in the early 2000s.
Getting ready for TFC against Philadelphia Union this weekend. It's Footy Talks presented by Benjamin Moore, former TFC player, former teammate of yours. Stevie is with us now. Warren Creval. Warren, how are you? Thanks for joining us today.
I'm doing all right, man. Appreciate you guys having me on. What's going on?
First off, how are you physically right now? Because you've had a bit of an injury. I think I saw Jim Curtin say that you won't quite be ready for this weekend.
Yeah, coming back from ankle sprain. Picked that up in the Montreal game. So just working to get back as soon as possible. Obviously, it's coming towards the end of the season. Games coming quicker than usual. So you miss more games, with these injuries these days. But, the playoffs are the important picture.
Get into Philly in a moment, but I just want to ask you about your time in Toronto, a teammate of Stevie's, of course. So apologies for that, commiserations. But you were there just a little bit over a year. You had the transition 2014, Ryan Nelson into Greg Vanney. How do you look back on the year or so that you spent with TFC?
Man, I think it was a really important time of my life in general. Career-wise, it was following the only surgery that I've had with my patella tendons, knee surgery, and just kind of finding my footing back in football, and in a new environment, new everything, new city. It was a really big time of growth. Having a guy like Steve in the locker room was amazing. To this day, one of my favorite skippers that I've got to play for. And just the way the city embraced me, and having, good teammates in the locker room, guys like Ashton Morgan, Luke Moore, this is, really high character guys. It was a really positive experience for me.
It's great to hear, Warren. Great to have you on. It's an absolute pleasure to talk with you again. Take us inside Philly right now. What's it like there? I know every time we talk to Jim Curtin, it's always a really warm experience. And I know the club is run brilliantly from top to bottom. What's it been like? I know you've been there for some time right now, but this is a real superpower now. It's great to see you guys at the top of the East and contending at the very top with TFC this weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, being, the top 2 on the table, there's going to be, a different air around, the change room. And, you really see that, you could be on the brink of something really special. We've had a lot of guys contributing in a lot of different ways, and that's something you see when, teams are, able to accomplish these things. You look back at, the 17 Toronto's teams, and, you see different players contributing in major ways. And, you start to see seeds of that. So it's really exciting.
Warren, you were a terrific teammate, mate, but you were also one of the coolest guys that I ever got to share a dressing room or some time with. And I want to talk about your other passion in life, which is obviously fashion, and what you've done there, and maybe explain to us how that started and what you're doing in that space, and then obviously give us a little bit of info on how it came about that you were designing the Black Lives Matter t-shirts for MLS's back.
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, having my own brand, I don't say that I'm too much into fashion, more into, style and, self-expression more so. But yeah, man, I mean, it's definitely a passion as far as that goes. And, pointing back to that time in Toronto, it really, kind of solidified. And, as far as my brand goes and the aesthetic goes, I think that city had a really big impact on, how everything looks, how everything's presented, kind of what my brand looks like and what my work looks like. So I'm always, thankful for that. And being able to translate that into meaningful work, working with BPC, working with the league to, make, these powerful social justice messages, has been really a blessing. And, to do that with, inside the frame of football, it's really been, all the stars aligned for me.
So when you're saying that Toronto influenced you in that, you basically looked at Stevie and thought, I want to be different. Like, I don't want to,
this is not what I don't want to be, so this is the way I'm going.
The opposite direction.
The Black Players for Change, the T-shirts that you made that were worn in Orlando was a huge part of it. But I also saw you talking recently about what it meant to you in terms of the demonstration that happened before that first game in Orlando with the 170 players that were there. How special a moment was that for you?
It was huge. I've said, going into that, it almost, not almost, it felt like we were going into, a championship match almost, those kind of nerves, that kind of adrenaline, and, following it, feeling like I just played at an actual game in the morning. So it was just, an incredible moment. And, I think in that time, everybody could, see the broadcast back, I think that was shared with the masses as well.
Go ahead, Luke.
I was just going to say, do you think enough is happening now in terms of the next steps forward for Major League Soccer?
Sorry, I lost you a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Do you think that was obviously a great moment, but is enough happening now in terms of the next steps within Major League Soccer and Black Players for Change, the things you're trying to impact?
I think the next steps, will really happen in a lot of localized areas, right? So, players and owners really, putting their heads together in their respective markets to make meaningful changes in their communities and, planting those seeds, in as many different places as we can to make a collective change. And that, all over the, country, the
looks like we might have
world
lost.
Really is to me what will, initiate really meaningful change.
Warren, it's not the best line, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. You do know the fact that you talked so glowingly about Stevie and him being a great captain. He's never going to let us forget that. So, it'll be a decade from now, and he'll still be going on about that when we're talking to him about that. So, listen, wish we could see you tomorrow on the pitch or on Saturday. Hopefully, you're able to get back as soon as possible. Thank you for everything that you're doing with regards to the Major League Soccer and your fashion and the Black Players for Change as well.
Thanks so much.
It has been noticed, and hopefully you're going to have a decent run with Philly into the playoffs this season. Congrats on what you've achieved.
Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. That's the plan. I appreciate you guys having me on.
All the best.
Warren Kristian with us on Footy Talks. Former TFC player, of course, from 2014 to 2015. The guests coming thick and fast here as we come towards the end of the show. Ali Curtis, the general manager of Toronto FC, joining us now. from the we said last week that Greg Vanny was in the presidential suite in the poshest hotel in Hartford. So I'm not sure if Ali is next door to Greg, or if they each have their own floors on floors 25 and 26.
Vice President suite, maybe.
Vice President suite. Okay. How's it going in Hartford, Ali? Thanks for your time today.
Going well. I'm in the closet, so I've just dressed it up a bit, but I'm in a room, so it's going well as can be. I've got a roof over my head and food in my stomach, so it's good, and we're in a good place where the table is. So yeah, in a good place.
You must take immense pride from, when you put a team together and you hope that they can be successful on the pitch and overcome any challenges that come your way, you must never be quite sure whether or not you have that mix that is just going to click, and that you have that group of players who are going to be able to get on with everybody. You must be immensely proud at where this team has come this season, and the group that you have together, and the challenges that they have already faced and gone through to get to this point, to be sitting where you are right now with 3-4 games to go this season.
Yeah, I'm really proud of everyone, within the organization, not just within TFC, but everyone that we've relied on, even folks like yourself that have been really supportive of us, in so many different ways. Really proud of that, because, this is, as we all know, this has been a really difficult year for everyone within football, within the club, and then also outside of the club, all of our fans and supporters and the different jobs that they have. Of course, we talk about frontline workers and the work that they've done. And so really proud of everyone and what they've been able to do under really, really incredibly difficult circumstances. Hasn't been easy. And so, to come this far and be in, late October, looking at, 4 games left in the season, and to have a chance is awesome and really important and great. And I think it's a reflection of the entire organization, top to bottom, and everything else in between.
Ali, there's so many different adjectives that you could have used to describe your team even before this season, and I know experience is one, and the collective unity that they bring. But have you noticed when you watch them on the field that there's even maybe more layers of resiliency that this kind of season has brought to them? They seem even more of a tougher team, and even more maybe a defensive team over the last few weeks than we've seen at TFC for a number of years, if ever.
Yeah, you a great point. You use a lot of adjectives and resiliency is a great word. And just to touch on the previous question as well, you do bring a lot of people into the mix, and you don't know how it's going to work. And it happens in every sport, whether that's the NFL or, you see the top draft pick and does he play, or the NBA, and so many people contribute and invest into bringing people, staff and players into the environment. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Nobody bats 1,000 in baseball, and in football, nobody gets it right every single time. This group has had a tremendous amount of resiliency. Part of that, I think, is also a result of, I think we have, there's been some consistency year over year. We have some really, really great veteran leadership. We've got a great umbrella company in MLSC that helps with guidance and resources and all these types of things, which are really, really important going through these difficult times. Keeping people together. So many different lines of businesses throughout the country, throughout North America, have gone through downsizing and reductions and all these types of things that impact culture and impact kind of the fabric of what you try to achieve. And I think our organization has been really resilient and strong during those moments, which also resonates at the team level, whether we're talking about the Argonauts, the Raptors, or the Maple Leafs, or TFC, and that permeates throughout the club. And our guys have had to, and by when I say guys, I mean, staff and players. They've spent time, close to a month in Orlando away from their families. Then we're 14-day quarantine back in Toronto. Then it's 8 or 9 days in Hartford, 2.5 days back. Then it's 18 days in Hartford. Now it's about an 11-day stretch. And so, I think everyone throughout this moment has been talking about being able to adapt and be resilient. And I think our guys have done a fantastic job at it. I'm really proud of them. especially, and you've seen all these different events that have happened since May 25th when George Floyd was murdered, and all these other different things that have really impacted your psyche and rock your core. And our guys still have been able to go to work and do the things that they need to do to get the job done.
Ali, I think back to 2014 when I was captain in TFC, and we made the splash with Bradley and Defoe, and we were quite tight and solid then. But I think we felt the pressure as a group to kind of have a kind of clear identity. And the point I'm making is that in 2020, I think TFC have achieved enough success that they can sort of play in any way that they choose. And I would like to know, is it an organic thing, the way that you guys are playing right now, looking so solid and maybe winning a lot of games by the odd goal, or is it a sign of the times, or is it just allowing these guys to go out there and do their business because you have such trust and they have such experience of winning and success?
That's a really good question, Stephen. I think that it just like a lot of different things, it's kind of a combination of everything, and so like, so much attention and focus has been on, okay, what do you do with this virus, right? And so, and even then there's not one different solution. Yes, it's it's hygiene, and then also it's testing, and then also it's distance, and all these types of things. And then hopefully at some point we'll be able to add into the equation vaccine. But even then, that's adding in one element of the equation. Still, all those other things may need to exist in order for us to have the right solution. And I think it's no different than with this team. I think that, and I think we're fortunate to have consistency, with our coaching staff, with our players, and they've played in big games, not just in at the club level, but also at the international level. And so we're fortunate to have guys that can get the job done and have gotten the job done in a lot of different ways, which allows us to, just like this pandemic, adapt for what's needed on the night. And, so much of this year is just trying to get through a situation or event and stay healthy. And that simile or metaphor is that you use in our life is also similar to what we use in the match, and that we may need to adjust the tactics. We may need to tighten the lines and try to do everything we can to get a shutout, even if it's only trying to get the one goal result, because maybe we've had to modify the lineup, change all these different types of things and tactics such that we can try to get a result, because the games are going to come fast. We've never had to go Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, and just kind of continually do that over and over again. It presents not just physical fatigue, but also emotional and mental fatigue as well. And so I think our guys have been, again, we talk about this, adaptable. They've been resilient. Greg and the staff and the players have had to try to find solutions. You go in with a game plan, but then they've had to adapt within the moment and try to find different solutions on different surfaces in different markets. We've now technically played 3 home games in different markets, one in Toronto, in Orlando, and in Hartford. So you just gotta roll with the punches and then just try to punch back. And I think our guys have done a good job.
Sounds like whichever team this finishes first this regular season really deserves a trophy, like a supporting shield or a manhole cover or whatever it is. I don't know, but sounds to me like it's probably
just go get a manhole cover from outside the hotel. You'll be fine.
I'm not going there. I'm not going to say anything about a manhole cover.
We don't need to go there. Enough has been said, and hopefully the right decision gets made over the course of the coming days. And Greg Vanney was very good and very strong, and we all agreed on exactly what he had to say last weekend about that. I want to talk to you about Richie Laryea. And
can I touch on a little bit of that, though?
Sure, absolutely.
We'll touch on a little bit of that. I've been reading. First of all, I'm really uncomfortable talking about that. Supporter shield is what we're talking about. Before you're even, there's still a lot of football to be played, right? I mean, so that is, and you try to just focus on one game at a time. So I've personally been really uncomfortable just talking about that, but I'm very supportive of all the comments of everyone within our organization that has made with regard to that. So a lot of different thoughts, a lot of range of emotions. What I will say is, and I probably could spend an hour or two just talking about this specific, because it's personal, it's emotional, and we spent a lot of time on this, even here, just talking about like what the season has meant and all these types of things. And what I will say this is that I think that all of our staff and our players have gone through a lot this year, as everyone outside of football has gone through a lot, and just trying to cope and trying to figure things out and trying to communicate, trying to adjust to all the different phases that we've all gone through during COVID, and what we're doing with our business, what we're doing, going back to work, not going back to work, leaving your kids, leaving your spouses, missing birthdays, missing, wedding anniversaries, all these types of things. We've been on the road, especially as a Canadian team. I'm against any decision that doesn't honor that as well in an equivalent way. And it just is, it's super disappointing to read all the things that we've read. Also, you see, even the vehicle for which this information has been disseminated is, if you looked at what's happened in the United States over the last 3.5 years, we know that Twitter is not the way to do things. There are other ways to talk about things, which is why I'm wearing a vote shirt. And I hope we go out and I hope Americans, wherever you are, whether you're in Canada or whether you're in the United States or any other parts of the world, that you let your voice heard in the way of sending in your ballot. Voting by mail is legal, and it's the right way to do it, especially if you can, and that's the only vehicle that you have. But yeah, I'd also say we at Toronto, we've seen a lot of our supporters have been providing support, and in that, not in that decision, but also in terms of what's been happening throughout the year and what we've been doing, which we're really proud about. So I don't want to spend too much time kind of going over that thing, but I do want to say that I was fortunate. I won the Supporters Shield in 2015 when I was at the Red Bulls, and we put a lot into it. And it's not just the players and the staff; it's everyone, all the families. And this year has been yeoman's work. It's been really, really difficult. And I hope regardless of what happens, to be honest with you, at the end of this regular season, at the end of this playoffs, we're going to celebrate as a family. Because we've done so much. We'll continue to put everything we can, and we'll celebrate this year because of the year that it's been for all of us.
Well said. Absolutely. And I appreciate as well the fact that you and a lot of your players are using their voices for important things that aren't just football related. And you've done that on a number of times with us here on this show. Michael Bradley does it often. Justin Morrow obviously is playing a key role. It's more than about just being footballers. And that is something I think that has been a key value and will be obviously under you moving forward, Ali.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's important. It's, we all have this thing, these things that we do to try to keep a roof over our head and to feed our families and to keep ourselves engaged in things. And that's our work. That's our profession. And if we're lucky, that's also our passion. And I think that you also can't lose sight of life and what happens. And so, when I talk about, what this year has meant, and it's hard from a sports, people, I think there are people out there that don't feel that, folks within sports can have a voice on some of these things. Maybe they make too much money. They get to have a passion for a living or whatever it is. But, their kids don't think that way, and so when they leave for an Orlando bubble or they leave for Hartford, Connecticut or whatever it is, their kids don't all they do is they see their mom or their dad leaving for an extended period of time. And we only get one crack at this thing, in terms of life. And so it's important that we honor those things. And it's important that we do everything we can within the lines and outside of the lines that can impact our lives in a very, very positive way. And I think, there's a recognition that we've come so far, as mankind, but there's so much more distance to go. And if anything, I think we've really seen that the last 5-6 months, and fortunately, there's been a recognition of that. I think at the board level. Especially, I mean, I can't tell you the great conversation I had with our owner, Larry Tannenbaum. And then also there's been a reaction of reflection of all this, even at the player level, at the staff level. And so we're trying to do some good things, and we're trying to, you do have a platform. We're trying to do some really good things that can impact all of us within the game and outside of the game. And that's really, really important because, we want to 25, 30 years from now, we want to be proud of what we achieved within the game, but it's also our life. And we want to be proud of how we were able to impact people, relationships, and all those types of things. And for me, that's quality, and so, that's, it's not just how well you can kick a ball and do these types of things, but it's also, we talk about the character that you bring within the locker room and those types of things. I hope that people will be remembered and events will be remembered by not just what happens on the field, but also how they were and what they did outside of the field. So it's super important, equally important, and we're all trying to push equally as much.
My hope is certainly the same, and I would stress and tell you that we have those conversations more often. We want to do that on these shows. That's what it's about. It's a soccer show, but at the end of the day, 2020 has been tough on everybody. Let's just show everybody more love and compassion and be there for each other. That's what we're all there for. You say you hope in 25 years people will look back. I can tell you already, people are looking back and saying what a great job you've done already in this organization and your players in this league to stand up for social injustice and all of that. And I'll add this. I know the fans don't always have a voice, but I know listening to some of them, there's nothing more special as a fan of a club when you know that club represents the same morals and values of yourself. And then they can stand up for what they believe is right. And as I said earlier in the show, this is a country right now featuring 3 MLS clubs in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal that are not allowed to play games in this country. And they have traveled across the border for those fans to represent those names on those badges, to be there for them and represent this country, wherever their fans are. And, amen to all that. Hopefully we'll continue to see that and put smiles on people's faces. Ali, just quickly from me before we do move forward, moving back to your point about Hartford, that has become a home. It's where you're representing Toronto. If you do go on and you win this league, all the home games will be played there, I would imagine. Is that now set in stone? How's it feeling? Is it feeling like a true home advantage? And if you do get all the way to MLS Cup, would that be where it would be played? Is that already organized?
I think what I would say is, I think if you had to make a decision today that would be long lasting, first of all, thanks for saying those words. They mean a lot. And you and I, and all 3 of you have gotten to know each other over the last really close to 2 years. And I appreciate being here, and I appreciate those words. So I think if there was a decision today, especially with what's going on, there is this narrative or a belief that maybe as things get colder in schools and now there's more play dates and all these other things, that has resulted in potentially the case count increasing in a lot of different areas, not just in Canada, but also in the US. So I think if the decision was today, it would be very difficult for us to play playoff games and potentially if we advance to an MLS Cup at BMO. What I think we've all experienced is that every week things change, with the pandemic. Ideally, our love would be to be able to play a goal to play a game at BMO Field, whether that's at some point in the playoffs. So we just have to wait. It's a wait and see, and we keep those conversations going. We want to be honest and authentic with what's going on with our fans and with our players in terms of this is the current state of affairs. But hopefully things, if things could change, that would be fantastic, where we could get into BMO Field and play a game. That would be awesome. With that being said, I think the people and the folks in Hartford have welcomed us with open arms, and we're so respectful and appreciative of that as well. I do think that we have a bit of a home field advantage here. I think that, a lot of folks, a lot of things have gone into making Rentschler Field, where we're playing, a real home field. The pitch is fantastic. We wouldn't have gotten this. I believe is the best solution that we could have hoped for, having to play games in the U.S. When you look at the facility, being a single tenant, all these types of things. The field is similar to BMO. BMO Field, I mean, the field is fantastic, especially when we put the hybrid in. So, but but this field is great, and so I do believe that our guys are starting to feel more at home, so to speak, than they were, say, like in Orlando and things like that. And I do believe that teams, when they come to Hartford, they feel that they're playing away, and so, which is really, really, I think, important. And had we shared a venue with another club or gone to some other, situation, I'm not sure we would have gotten that benefit. But so far it's been good on a lot of different fronts, and we do have a home field here. But yeah, if we got a chance to get back to Toronto, I mean, we would jump at that. That would be that's our home. That's where we're from. That's where we reside. And who knows, in terms of how things will change with this pandemic.
Ali, we're almost out of time. Just a bit of business before we go, and we really appreciate you taking the time today. We spoke to Greg Vanney last week, and Bill Manning was on the radio saying that a new deal for Greg is very, very close, within a few days. Things almost agreed. Is there any advance on that right now?
You guys know me.
When are you going to tell us, yes, it's done, the X try?
Yeah, what I would say is that, I think the whole coronavirus really screwed a lot of things up. It delayed a lot of things and all these types of things. I think we're all on the same page. Sometimes these things, just dotting the I's and crossing the T's and having the signature, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Nothing's done until it's done, for sure. Greg and I have had some really good talks. Bill and Greg have had some really good talks. The three of us have had some really good talks. I think we all know where we'd like this thing to end. I think we all believe that Greg will be the coach for Toronto FC next year and moving forward. He's done a fantastic job with the team, his family. He's got a great family. I really enjoy working with Greg. And so I'm hopeful that we'll get this thing done and delivered sooner rather than later. Now that it's out there, it almost is like we'd like to get it done sooner rather than later, just so that it doesn't become a talking point or a distraction and those types of things. The reality is sometimes these things, there's so many different nuances, and they just and reasons why you don't exactly get them, signed and delivered and announced. But a lot of times, majority of the times, that has nothing to do with anything negative, so to speak, or anything to do with this moving in a different direction than where it's headed. Even I take call it our captain, Michael Bradley, even if you look at his situation in terms of last year and in the final year of his contract, and, there were many conversations during that year. And I think we both parties knew where we wanted this thing to land. It just sometimes takes a little bit longer. In his situation, it took, right after the season. Hopefully we'll have some things, hopefully with Greg, that will be buttoned up prior to that, and we can just move on and be focused. And it's also, I would say, it's one thing, it's the pandemic, and then it's also been kind of these games coming so fast, where you just don't even have time to react to a lot of the things that are outside of, and then just to be, I don't, also when you get back to Toronto, we're quarantined, and you've spent so much time away from your family that you really want to spend maybe those 2 days or those 48 hours just kind of like, and some just trying to recharge and shut it down a little bit so that you can kind of get back to the business. So all these weird things, I think, are these things that are happening that have happened are just, not characteristic. They're characteristic of 2020, not characteristic of the normal events. But I'm confident in where this is, the direction that this is headed, and where it will land. And so I'm hopeful that we can get Greg signed sooner than later.
I look forward in a few years' time to reading the chapters in your book on the 2 years of life at Toronto FC that you've had, your first 2 years at the club, because quite a few experiences within there, right back from the very start, Ali.
I hope I'm, I got to be alive, I hope, knock on wood. Okay. My goodness. It's been a wild one, but it's been good. I don't know. Sometimes you step into situations and you have an idea of how it's going to go and those types of things. And you just take it in and enjoy it and let it go. And it's been different. I certainly wouldn't have anticipated everything that I think that has happened since January 2nd. But I think it's made our club stronger. It's made me better. It's made me stronger and made me more open. It's changed me. I've grown. I'm enjoying it. And I'm like, I have nothing to complain about. We were at MLS Cup. We won the Eastern Conference Championship, last year. Now we're 4 games away and we got a shot at doing a couple things. Plus the Canadian Championship, we've advanced to that final. So, what is it? The end doesn't justify the means, or the means justify. But in all seriousness, there's been a lot of weird and strange and difficult moments, but there's been sometimes that's the best. And sometimes I've been able to see the best in people. I've been able to see the best in myself. I've grown. My voice has changed a bit, but I think in a really good way, in a clear way. And I've got good people that I've been able to work with and things like that. So in that sense, it's been fantastic. I want to keep it going.
Ali, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk to us and the TFC fans listening today. Thanks so much, and best of luck the next few weeks as you get towards the end of the season and raising Greg Vanney's manhole cover.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. No problem.
Ali Curtis, the general manager of Toronto FC, with us. Always fascinating. You always want more time. So many topics that you can't get into, but also so many important things as well that Ali never shies away from. As we just wrap up today, just your thoughts on the conversation, KJ.
Yeah, it's honest, and I think that's really important to state. I think that fans will listen to that, and that's what you want from your general manager. That's what you want from people. We're all fans of different teams, and we've all been fans of them. And when you listen to that, you want them to be pointed in the right direction, and you want them to stand and mean for something. And I think that what you see from Ali is that he's become more comfortable in talking publicly about things, and as he talks there about being growing. And it's I think if you go back and watch the beginning of his press conference when he was first hired, you'd notice a big difference in the way of his demeanor and his confidence. And I think that's only for the good of the club, and for the good of the right things that he's talking about and promoting going forward, Stephen.
Yeah, and I think credit to what he stepped into as well, KJ. I think he's a guy coming in a little bit of time out of the game, and then he stepped into a lot of stability, a lot of things set in place, and we laugh about the 2 years difficulties he's had, but really in terms of the structure and the foundation stability of the club, he's very fortunate. He knows he's in a great place. He knows he's one of the top clubs in North America, and I think that confidence that he shows us and everyone else, and that openness comes from the fact that he's in such a secure place. So credit to TFC, credit to Ali Curtis. He's doing a great job in difficult circumstances, and I really believe that between Bill Manning, Ali Curtis, and Greg Vanney, they seem to have a really strong working relationship. So once Greg signs that new deal, I'm sure that'll continue, and they'll try and keep building and pushing TFC forward.
As always, great to chat footy with you guys and everything else. We'll do it again next Thursday and Saturday night. It's a big night on TSN. TFC involved, Montreal against NYCFC, Vancouver as well later on. So join us for that. But for now, thanks everyone. We'll see you again next week.
Be safe. Thanks everybody.